Recently I heard rumours of a giant freshwater fish that, if true, would be a brand new species to me. One that I never knew existed in a country that I know little about. I'm in Argentina. I'm on my way to the Paraná River. It's the second biggest river system in South America after the Amazon. I know other rivers in South America very well and the creatures that live in them, but this river is very little known in the outside world, and it's also new territory for me. And most important, this river harbours a killer. A little while ago, I heard about a child who died as a result of encountering something in the water. A 12-year-old girl was playing close to her village on one of the remote islands set in this huge river. She had entered the water countless times before, but this time it would be different. This time there was something waiting in the shallows, only yards from the bank. The attack was brief but ferocious. She stood no chance against such weaponry. She died soon after in her mother's arms, killed by a freshwater monster. The evidence from the death points to one suspect. Shallow water, piercing barb and speed of attack all suggest a stingray. But this is fresh water, and I wasn't aware that there were stingrays in this river. The Paraná River rises in southern Brazil and travels through Paraguay into Argentina before emptying into the Atlantic, 3,000 miles from its source. The outback town of Bella Vista lies on the banks of this great river, 500 miles from the sea. Before the arrival of the Spanish, this corner of Argentina was the land of the Guarani people. It is now the home of gauchos, farmers and fishermen. It still has the air of a frontier town here. This is where I am basing myself on my quest for a leviathan. These people live a nomadic existence. During the wet season, their ranches are submerged underwater. They spend months cut off from the outside world. At a ranch on an island, I talk with a group of gauchos who explain the dangers of living in such isolation, alongside one of the river's most feared predators.
Sí, hay muchas en el río acá.
Mucho?
Sí, sí, sí.
Yes, there's stingrays here. Me conta.
Caballos, vacas, caballos, vacunos, personas, inclusive personas.
I just asked, do you know anybody who's ever been wounded by one? Yes, but not just people, but also cows and horses too.
cortan muy hondo las avenas y
Sangra
sí,
morto.
Sí, muerto. Algunos.
He said, you know, they have known horses to die as a result of a blood vessel being punctured. También infección.
Sí, se hincha, se hace agujeros, ¿sí? Ahí mueren.
But also they've had other horses die from infection.
El caballo da un relincho, ¿viste? Al ser picado ya.
He says it's almost as if the horses are crying because the pain is so bad. The first place I've stopped, yes, there are rays here, and not just people, but also large animals have actually been killed by these rays. I'm after a creature that can kill a horse, yet is virtually unknown to the outside world. You know, always there's this conflict between, do I just stick it out, carrying on doing what I'm doing, or do I change something? And you have to sort of reach a happy medium with that. You have to sort of give something a good go, but be prepared to change if, you know, it looks like you're doing something wrong. Something on there, I think. Oh, it's a piranha, it's a piranha. Wow. Right, what's happened there is that the bait's been chopped in half and then I foul hooked piranha in the back. I think that's fairly clear. This is what's been taking my bait, and, you know, talk about caught red-handed, there's the evidence. Chunky piranha. I've not actually caught this kind of piranha before. They call it palometa here. Well, it's very similar to red-belly piranhas in the Amazon. It's got that orangey throat area, very solid muscular head. It's a very serious piranha, that. There are killers of all sizes patrolling this river. But it is said that the people who live along its banks fear stingrays more than any other. Rays have a finely tuned sensory system, which they use to locate prey. But these sensors could also detect my thick line and hook. So by changing to finer gear, I hope to fool the ray into taking my bait. I'm going to scale down, and that's just a bit finer. Still very strong, 175-pound breaking strain, that.
This is the main line here. It's not going to create a lot of drag when it moves through the water. The current's not going to pick it up. I'm actually quite pleased with that setup.
I give it one more go, in the hope that as evening falls, the piranhas will stop feeding.
Nothing, nothing. That's very odd. Zzz, stop. Dum, 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 dum. Piranhas are still active by the look of it. Cursed by piranhas.
It is vital to understand the behavior of the other fish in the river besides your quarry in order to avoid the other species, like the omnipresent piranha. To remove these sight hunters from the equation, I begin fishing at night. I set my line, now confident it is past piranha feeding time.
Nothing. So much for that plan. Another one bites the dust.
But I feel as though the noose is tightening. I am closing in. So I further fine-tune my approach. I discard the bottle and begin casting, dropping the bait quickly to the river bottom, reducing the amount of time it's hanging around in mid-water. Now will I finally be rid of the curse of the piranhas.
You see that? Feels like a piranha, but it's too big for a piranha, I think. Ah, look at that. So much for piranhas not feeding at night.
These Paraná River piranhas are among the largest and most ferocious I have ever come across.
And it's so big, I can't really get my hand around it.
I've encountered piranhas before and know that in the right conditions they are capable of attacking and devouring the largest prey in seconds.
I don't think I particularly want to fall in here. Piranhas, big piranhas, but also active at night. It shows just how hungry everything is in here.
I fish for hours.
What's really kicking? Ah, I think that's is that a piranha?
Only to pull in one piranha after another, each as big as the last.
That could be time to call it a night if these guys are active.
But it's hard to give up when I know the monster stingray must be down there.
Wonder what this is. Oh, look at that. So this is a surubi. This is a predatory catfish. This is a small one. These things grow. Whoops. Oh, they grow over 100 pounds, so 5 or 6 foot long. But I mean, The thing about this fish for me is, it's a catfish, but it's a very athletic, streamlined catfish. It's a catfish that hunts actively. So it's got quite spiky fins, so to be careful. Oh! Ow! That's just dug its spine right in the back of my hand. That went right, oh my God. I've handled these fish actually like loads of times before. This is the first time I've been stabbed by one of these. It kicked, and that was its pectoral spine going in the back of my hand.
Although painful, these catfish spines do not have a venom.
What this is making me think about is I'm going to have to try and deal with a stingray at night, and just a moment's loss of concentration with a small catfish, and that's the result.
In the Amazon, stingrays are known as wish-you-were-dead fish because of the agonizing pain following a stab from the barb. I am in Argentina, 500 miles up the Paraná River, when I get my first proof that the river monster I've been searching for really does exist. But this isn't how I imagined I'd first see it.
The guts have been taken out. No tail. Tail's been hacked off on this. And this is actually a fish that I didn't know existed until I came here. I've known for ages that you get stingrays in fresh water, but this particular species, we're talking about, a very short time that I've known this existed, and here is the evidence in the flesh. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is a very, very creepy-looking fish. You've got these fine denticles all over the body, like miniature teeth. Some of them are more enlarged. As we get to the tail, look at that, that's starting to get some really serious, sharp, lumpy denticles there. And that's quite apart from the spine you've got on the back, which is just like this sort of dirty, serrated blade. So, I mean, this animal, it's not just the tail, this is just like a very lethally armed animal.
This stingray is much bulkier than the one I caught in Thailand, which was flatter, more slight.
It's a good 48-inch wingspan.
The power of this massive body is transmitted to the tail.
Just measuring the size of the tail as well as the size of the animal, 4 inches across, so that's quite a serious club-like weapon, never mind the big spike in the end.
One tipped with tissue-destroying venom. Now to find out the true weight of the Chucho de Rio.
It's registering just over 200 pounds there, and of course it's missing the tail and it's missing all the guts, and it's been out in the sun dehydrating and bleeding, so it's something like 225 when this was alive. I think we can be fairly safe about that.
A genuine river monster. But if the stories are true, then there are even bigger fighters out there. That is what I'm after, to see for myself the weaponry and the behavior that makes this creature a killer.
Today, there's this wind blowing upstream, and what that does, it's creating these standing waves here about 3 foot high. It actually turns it into quite an intimidating place. Ah, piranhas. Something's had a bit of that. Oh, something's moving down there.
Again, I'm forced to scale down my gear, in the hope that I can get the bait past the piranhas to where the rays lurk.
Just actually changing the leader. Actually, a ray with its tail flailing around. It's a bit like somebody coming at you with that. And that, well, you know, that could do a lot of damage. And in fact, you know, that is why I'll need to be wearing some of these. These are basically stab-proof, almost bulletproof as well. But that will give me a degree of protection because, yeah, it's going to be a knife fight basically. I just cast the bait out and there was instantly something on the bait. But it just felt like piranhas. It was like that kind of thing. Whereas what I actually want is something that just goes. Feels like a piranha.
But the Paraná River is full of surprises.
Ah, it's a different kind of catfish.
This looks like a new species for me, although it's very similar to one I've caught in the Amazon.
Yeah, there you go. That's a different fish. And again, it's just another fish that is going to, you know, polish off my bait. You know, it really is a problem, actually, just having a bait down there that's going to survive long enough for the stingray, which is very much the top predator, will come along and find it. It's coming close. Here, there it is.
Finally, a Chucho de Rio, the creature I've been told has killed 2 children and injured countless others.
It's off the bottom, but there's trees down here.
Although this is only a juvenile, it is still armed with a deadly barb and tissue-destroying venom.
It's a long way off yet, but
I don't want to bring this into the boat, so I ask Jose to head for the nearest beach.
Jose, vamos tranquilo.
I put on knife-proof Kevlar gloves to protect me against the barb.
And just pull it up.
As soon as it's out of the water, its tail is aiming for me. I notice that this ray is a heavier build than other rays I've caught. And the tail much shorter, more like a dagger than a whip.
I want to see if I can get a look at that.
The ray's tail is coated with toxic venom.
Just going to see if I can get any mucus off here. General fish slime. That's just sort of slime, that's mucus, but living in there you've got a cocktail of bacteria. I'm actually thinking about what those cowboys were saying. They've had horses die from fatal bleeding, but also from the infection when they've stepped on a ray. Oh! That's actually one heavy beast. And that's the, I'm just feeling the weight of this animal now. And this is a small one. I'm just thinking a weapon like that with 400, 500, maybe 600 pounds behind it. You know, it's like somebody coming at you with a medieval mace in a way. It's like a club with a nail in it. Anyway, let's get it back. Easing it into slightly deeper water. No, I'm just looking at the pattern of this and just, you know, it does just completely disappear into the background. It really does bring home how dangerous potentially these things are when you just see how they're just almost invisible in the water. That was actually a small one. What I want to see now is a big one of those, but if I do get one, I think I'm really going to have my hands full. I've been trawling this river now for 10 days straight, and I'm beginning to think that the only giant ray I'm going to see is the one hanging on the riverbank. So I'm fishing all the hours I can to maximize my chances. As yet another day turns to dusk, I have to be patient. Then I get a take that seems different from the others so far. Look at that. So, this is a Dorado. Oh, hey. But it's got some teeth there. It's a serious predator. And, well, one of many predators in the water here, and this is just one of the things that's beating the stingrays to the bait. This is the game fish that most anglers come here to catch. I'm just putting that back. That's not what I want. I want this sort of sluggish thing that skulks on the bottom. Most of my brother anglers would be the other way around.
Amazon River is known for containing an evil collection of murderous beasts. But there's one family of fish living here that could write a serial killer's handbook. Their methods are so bloodthirsty and varied.
I can see from here the way they are just literally drilling their way into that fish.
Members of the catfish family have reportedly swallowed people whole. They've eaten them alive from within, and even gruesomely penetrated individuals in the most intimate of places. I'm Jeremy Wade,
Fish on.
biologist and extreme angler, and I'm on the hunt for these killer catfish to determine if this family are the Amazon's ultimate river monsters.
Now imagine that in an orifice.
Brazilian Amazon, a truck makes a solemn path towards the local police station. It carries a macabre load, the corpse of a man. But the circumstances of his death were bizarre in the extreme. Fearing accusations of murder, the fishermen have taken the corpse to the police station in the exact state in which they found it. Just a pair of legs protruding from the mouth of a vast catfish. Could this wild tale emerging from the Amazon really be true? Or is this just a made-up fisherman's tale, and no more real than this photo recreation of what it might have looked like? I've faced many of the largest and most feared creatures in the waterways of this world. And I've discovered that you don't need to swim in the sea to encounter a man-eater. Rivers harbour just as many monsters. Ask people what is the most feared fish in the Amazon, and they'll undoubtedly say piranha, electric eel, or even stingray. But I've come to Brazil to find out if catfish are actually the worst of the lot, a true mafia-style family of killers at large. And I've tracked down Sr. Valmir, one of the witnesses to this bizarre murder, to hear his story.
Basically, there's a bit of a frenzy of fishing activity going on. One of the nets got stuck on a rock, and in that situation, you know, the only thing you can do if you're not going to rip the net, you know, you've got to go down and get it off. So this one fisherman dived in to free the net. However, what happened was that, you know, he didn't come up.
Uma média de 4 horas.
4 horas.
4 horas pela boiada.
The net came up, no fish in it, no fisherman. Nothing more was seen until about 4 hours later, when suddenly this huge fish appeared on the surface, and it was thrashing around because the fish was actually itself in trouble, actually choking. The fisherman was actually half inside the mouth of the fish, just the legs of the fisherman sticking out. And what happened then was that the fishermen all went to try and get the fish to net it, and he said, you know, because it was obviously quite tired, it was quite easy, just one net. They got it in and clubbed it to death. They left his body inside the fish and then went to Manaus as fast as possible. Obviously, you know, get it to the police station to make sure that there's no suspicion that it was a case of murder or anything like that.
The murderer was identified as a piraíba, the largest species of catfish found here in the Amazon.
So that fish could have been about 500 pounds. I mean, we are talking some seriously big fish here.
É peixe desse tamanho. Tem boca mais ou menos...
40 centímetros. 40 centímetros.
The mouth
About 40 centimetres across, so that's a couple of foot across, but he says it, it opens up more, so sort of maybe 2.5 foot. This was a pretty monstrous fish and a pretty horrific end for that particular fisherman.
Acha pouco, acha osso, mas vai ter peixe que
He
dói.
says there are people disappearing all the time and you never find a trace of them. You don't find the body, you don't find bones, you don't find anything.
Even having heard this horrific story from an eyewitness, someone who was actually there, seeing this monstrous fish with the fisherman's feet just poking out of the mouth, I still find it really hard to believe that there are fish here capable of doing that. And what I want to do is actually see with my own eyes how big the fish are in these Amazon rivers. I think the first thing I've got to do is go back to where this story all started and actually go myself to the scene of the crime.
Valmir talked of seeing a 500-pound Piraiba, which seems extreme, but photos do exist of some pretty large catfish. There are 3 species of giant catfish found here in the Amazon. The Jau, the red-tailed catfish, and the Piraiba. This catch was reported to be nearly 8 foot long and some 350 pounds. But maybe, as Valmir suggests, there are even bigger monsters out there, and if I follow his leads, perhaps I'll get to catch a man-eater of my own. Travelling for 12 hours, I reach my destination, a river junction up a tributary of the Amazon.
As far as I can gather, this is the scene of the crime. And what's interesting is this is a very obvious meeting of the waters. You can see it so clearly because the 2 rivers that meet here are different colours. One is muddy white water, one is black water.
According to the locals, large catfish wait in ambush at river junctions like this to predate on smaller fish travelling downriver.
Because I'm after a pretty monstrous fish, I'm using monstrous tackle. I've got a huge forged steel hook on the end attached to a length of wire. And then I've got about 300 yards of very strong line. Okay. And this rod, you'd normally only see this on a boat out in the open ocean, the kind of thing you'd use to catch marlin, tuna, that kind of thing, but I'm using this stuff in fresh water.
People only think of predatory fish living in the sea, but here I am about 1,000 miles from the ocean, staking out a crime scene to catch a man-eater.
Something down there. Just grabbed the bait, bent the rod, and then let go.
That's a fish on, that's a fish on. It's taking line. Taking line, taking...
Feels pretty sizable. It'll be a little bit decisive and brutal now. Fish doesn't want to know though, doesn't want to know. Going down. Fish is coming up in the water, there it is. It's a Jau, it's a good size.
This fish is not the Piraiba I was hoping for, but the Jau is a catfish, and some fishermen claim it can be just as dangerous as the larger Piraiba.
But it's not finished. doesn't like the sight of the boat at all.
It has a reputation for being so strong on the end of a line
Right.
that some people will tell you that it has dragged fishermen down into the depths.
This is about 80 pounds, 80, 90 pounds. It's a good sized fish. The hook hold looks good. We might even be able to land it on land.
After 20 minutes of hard struggle, I have the better of it.
Hey. And my goodness, feeling the strength of this thing. I wouldn't want that round my ankle or, you know, I wouldn't want to be head first down the mouth or something like that either. There we go. It looks a really sinister fish. That dark black colour, and it gets that from living down in the lightless zone, you know, deep in the rocky pools where it just blends in with the background. And particularly looking at it from here, just the shape of it, you know, it's a great big mouth, large head, very muscular midriff, and then just tapering off into this very chunky, powerful propulsion unit.
Just looking at these long whiskers that they use to probe their surroundings, it's pretty obvious where catfish get their name.
So this is a real, you know, this is a fish that's adapted for strong water, very strong fish. And if one of those was to grab you, there's not a great deal you could do about it. Oh, time to release this animal.
So the scene of the crime may not have yielded the man-eating Piraiba I was after, but this impressive Jau shows that there are some large catfish down there.
Oh, wanting to go already. Look at that, wanting to go already. That's good. That's good. There it goes. Ooh, quite a fish.
If I can get a big catfish here at this minor river junction, then perhaps if I fish the largest river junction in the world, the meeting of the waters near Manaus, I'll land the mother of all catfish. To hook the largest catfish in the Amazon, the Piraiba, as I want to prove that the stories of them swallowing fishermen are more than just fishermen's tales. And after catching a large Jau at a river junction, I think I know just the place to catch a monster.
This is it. This is the meeting of the waters. This is the black water of the Rio Negro coming down here, mixing with the white, muddy water of the Rio Solimões. And together they form the mighty Amazon. And this has to be probably the biggest river junction in the world. And everybody says that the big catfish, they love river junctions. So this place has to be a good bet for the mother of all catfish.
The point where these two rivers meet is more than a mile wide, over 200 feet deep in places. And for almost another 4 miles, these two massive waterways refuse to merge due to their different speeds, temperatures, and sediment contents. Giulio Cavalcanti has caught a 211-pound Piraiba at the meeting of the waters. But on another occasion, he nearly died here when the line wrapped around his body and started to pull him out of the boat. He had to cut himself free with this very knife. Giulio credits his fishing success to a secret bait formula that he wraps around a hook, seals in a tin can, and leaves to bake in the sun for 3 days.
Oh, Oh dear. I think most of the fish in this river are going to know that stuff is in there.
Look here.
Right. That. That just looks so. Oh. I've never seen anything quite like that.
Mas é muito boa. O peixe gosta demais.
Right, the fish like it. The fish like it. This is the guts, the byproducts of 8 chickens. So the entire intestines of one chicken is about that long, wound round, and you've got 8 entire intestinal tracts of chickens to make up that bait. I think with this now, I have to be ready to go fishing.
Julia reckons that once the sun sets and night falls, the catfish come out to feed.
That's the bait on a huge hook, lump of lead to keep it down. I'll feed this over the side. I've got 30 foot of iron cable. Feels good. The monsters could be on the move. How's this for float fishing? I've got a barrel on here. I mean, this is a Jaws moment if ever there was one. The bait's out, the engine's cut. It's now just a case of being quiet and just drifting down with the current.
But being out here after dark also increases the risks.
Here, you've not only got a very, very powerful fish that might hang on the end of the line, you've also got to keep an eye out for the weather. And also, this is a very, very busy waterway. There's going to be boats, big barges, all sorts of stuff, and they'll just run you over if you give them a chance, if you don't get out of the way. And 30 foot below all that is my bait.
The water underneath me could be 200 feet deep. But the Piraiba, whose name means mother of all the fishes, is totally at home here. With a lightning-conducting rod in my hands, I'm easily the highest point in this wide stretch of river. So I decide to call it a day before that storm gets any closer.
Well, nothing came for that bait. And I don't know, maybe I can't blame them. Either it's just not my night, or the fact that it is so close to a big city means that the fish have all been fished out. You know, there is a huge fishing fleet operating from Manaus, and this is right on the doorstep. Perhaps, you know, I need to go further away from civilization if I'm to get the mother of all the catfish.
I head into the dark heart of the Amazon, up a distant tributary of the main river, to see if that tactic changes my luck. Maybe here I'll catch my man-eating Piraiba.
Head down, head down, head down, head down, head down. Fish on.
Could this be the river monster I'm after? But who'll win this battle? Me or the fish? I'm here in the Amazon, investigating a family of killer catfish.
It's taking line. It's a strong fish, this.
And I think I've hooked a Piraiba,
Come around, I've got to come around, got to come around, got to come around.
the largest catfish species found here.
It's a good sized fish. Haven't seen it yet. Look at that! That is actually not the fish I want. That is a huge red-tailed catfish. I want the white, streamlined, shark-like Piraiba. But this thing, my goodness, this is a good size. This is a very good size.
Now that this fish is in the boat, it is pumping air, not water, over its gills, creating these strange sounds.
That is a big old catfish. And it's getting me in training for the Piraiba. The only thing is, too many more experiences like this one, and I just won't have any energy for a fish that's bigger than this. And I mean, this thing is just a huge head, huge bony head, tapering off into this leathery body, and a great big wide mouth there, without any teeth as such, but it's got real good grasping pads.
Unlike a shark that can bite its prey in half, catfish have to swallow it whole. So if they are overly ambitious, they will choke. But this fish has a different problem. Inside its mouth is a parasitic bloodsucker.
Another one here. And that is absolutely engorged with blood. The blood of this poor catfish.
This tiny parasite, the candiru, and this vast predator are both from the mafia-like family of catfish.
This is pretty disgusting. I don't know if I can get hold of it because they're very slippery. Need more fingernails. Okay, look, there we go. So there we go, before and after. This one's fed. This one's still lean and hungry.
And as I'll find out, it's these small guys you have to watch out for, as this parasite is one of the cruelest catfish on meat.
There we go. Okay. That was nice to catch that. Not the fish I want, but, you know, that's a real monster in its own right.
The kangaroo usually targets a big fish as its host, drinking blood from its gills. But occasionally they make mistakes. This has resulted in one of the most infamous legends ever to emerge from the Amazon. A man urinating in the river who has a fish swim up his penis. Yet for one gentleman, this urban myth became reality. Luckily, he was able to make it to this surgery in Manaus, where he was treated by Dr. Anwar Samad.
4 dias. Então,
He'd actually had this fish inside him for 4 days, and the reason there was such a delay was because he actually lived a long way, in the interior, away from the city.
bem dilatado, porque peixe dentro não conseguia urinar.
He had a very, very swollen bladder. He was bleeding, general fever, swollen testicles, and generally in a very bad way.
E o peixe caminhou lá dentro, como se tivesse caminhado com as barbatanas, caminhou lá dentro.
The fish wasn't visible. It's got these little sort of spines on the gill flaps, so it was almost like working its way in like that. It would have swum as far as the sphincter, at which point the fish was apparently trying to sort of, gnaw its way out, was actually, instead of just swimming up the urethra, was actually starting to gnaw. So this guy obviously was in a lot of pain.
Quando nós passamos o endoscópio, esse aparelho entra direto no pênis, passamos o endoscópio, percebemos 12 centímetros.
12 centimeters. What was done first of all was that the endoscope was put in the end of his penis into the urethra.
The endoscope was equipped with a camera, and this is the actual footage from that operation.
They were expecting to find a little fish. What they found instead was something that went, almost from the entrance of the urethra all the way back to the sphincter. They're talking about something 5 or 6 inches. So, not exactly a little fish, quite a substantial animal.
Kangaroo locate their hosts by following the trail of dilute urea that fish excrete from their gills. This could explain this kangaroo's mistake. I go in search of its unfortunate victim to reintroduce him to the actual fish that swam up his urine stream.
Okay, so it's 11 years ago. It's in this very spot. Silvio and some friends were in the water down there.
Ele me deu uma dose de bebida e eu subi, quando eu ia descendo, eu vontade de urinar, só que aí eu tava...
And after a little period of time, Silvio, felt the need to urinate, as happens. He knew the story about the kangaroo, so he actually sort of took himself partially out of the water.
Já foi na hora que eu fui urinar, quando eu me espantei e o bicho estava entrando.
While he was relieving himself, suddenly he said, he just had a bit of a shock. And, the first thing he knew was that the fish was already, inside. Only, just the end of its tail was out.
Fora batendo, eu tentei agarrar, mas não deu.
Tried to grab hold of it, but it's a very smooth fish, a bit like a bar of soap. No good, no success pulling it out, so basically just ran up onto the bank to try and get some help.
I decide to throw a net out to see if I can catch one of these critters.
Here we go. This is almost exactly what Silvio described, something going in one direction and just not wanting to come into reverse at all. Look at that, I can actually feel its spines digging in when it does that. It was actually walking using its head. Now imagine that in an orifice. This fish is just leaking blood. It's not this fish's blood, it's something it's been feeding on. And it is just an absolute nightmare, a real sort of vampire fish, this thing.
A fish like this may have entered Silvio in search of a blood meal, but little did it know that its mistake would result in an unprecedented medical procedure lasting 2 hours.
Também não se conhece nada a respeito de ataque desse peixe e do que deve ser feito. Concorda?
The first thought was to, a bit like a hook that's got a barb on it, actually pulling it back the way it went in is not always a good idea. He was thinking of actually sort of coming in from the side, coming in from the perineum and actually trying to sort of pull the fish out head first. But he thought that because, it had been such a long time in there, they would actually, and also the other fish were starting to rot a bit, maybe try and pull it out with the endoscope, out tail first the way that it went in. The tail of the fish was about here, about an inch in. And so the head of it would have been somewhere like here. And then what happened was that the pincers were gradually, manipulated out of the hole here. There we go. Grabbed hold of the fish just in front of the tail, and then using the camera, and then the whole apparatus just gradually, very delicately moved out.
Se aquela força é o suficiente para o peixe vir, sem cortar, sem partir, sem danificar.
Apparently it was necessary to pull with a certain amount of force, but feeling that it's not doing any damage. Unfortunately, it did come out eventually.
The fish was sent to the National Institute of Amazonian Research to be formally identified, thus confirming, after centuries of speculation, that a fish has entered a human in the most intimate of places.
This is a somewhat momentous and possibly delicate occasion. I'm bringing Silvio back to meet his fish. This one. Silvio, esse aqui.
Canheiro.
But this is actually the first time since he had the surgery that Silvio has seen this fish, this very fish. Quer pegar assim?
Não.
That's it. I'll just ask Silvio if he would like to handle it, and very definite no. I think once was enough. So maybe if I leave it in my hand, but I'm quite struck by how large it is. É grande, né? Não é peixinho, mas é
grande. Eu pensei que era menor. Eu só vi ele dentro desse vidro quando o doutor já me mostrou quando eu tava.
He's looking at it now, thinking, I didn't realize it was that big. I thought it was smaller. It really does sort of beg a belief that something of that size could burrow into you.
So is the candiru the worst of all the fish in the Amazon? A catfish of such vile reputation that none can surpass it. The vaults of Brazil's National Institute of Amazonian Research, Dr. Lucia Rapp shows me some of her more extreme specimens.
It's a kind of armored catfish.
It's like out of a horror movie or something from outer space. I mean, you wouldn't believe this could be a fish, but I mean, there is just such diversity.
So this kind of fish, in fact, it grazes on wood. It's a beautiful one.
Oh, look at that.
It's another kind of catfish.
I'm still marveling at these oddballs when Lucia tells me a strange and sinister tale. Dr. Lucia Rapp, the curator of the collection here, wants to show me another catfish species that is potentially even more horrific than the blood-sucking Candiru.
So what was the case that you heard about?
We had a situation here recently. We received a visit of a doctor. He came with some images of two corpses, two men. He believed that they were shot because they have those very round holes on the body. He started to dissect the corpse. He saw that it was not gunshots. The corpses were hollowed already inside without any organs.
Wow, I'm just trying to imagine being a pathologist and you're brought a corpse. There's what looks like bullet holes. You start to dissect the body and the body is hollow. The organs have been removed.
And there wasn't any kind of bullet or something inside the corpse, just the fishes. So he realized that the fishes got inside the bodies and eaten the organs inside.
The fish was identified as a close catfish relative of the blood-sucking Candiru, called the Candiru asu.
Would they have been dead when the fish got in?
Well, they suspect that the men might be even alive because he saw the structure of the flesh and they were eaten from the inside. And they probably died from that, right?
Not going to be alive for very long with all that going on inside.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, if you are alive, if you feel the fish, you can just remove it.
Yes.
But if you are, for example, drunk or ill or something, you may not have enough strength to resist to them. Imagine a whole bunch of these fishes attacking you at once.
Not a very pleasant thought if you're going for a little swim in the Amazon.
Having heard this gruesome tale, I decide to visit the city morgue to see if I can track down any more details.
I think it's all very well having a certain scientific curiosity about some of these bizarre and gruesome deaths, but actually seeing the people waiting outside here who have come basically to identify bodies, you know, it becomes much more personal. And you know, I'm not, to be honest, totally prepared for what I'm going to sort of hear or even see in there. A little bit sort of uneasy and uncomfortable about it, but yeah, time to go anyway.
Come to the Manaus morgue to investigate an incident where a human was eaten from within by a catfish. Dr. Elizabeth Becerra has dealt with several cases like this. She was the first pathologist to recognize this bizarre behavior and present it to the outside world.
E são destruídos, literalmente esqueletizados pela essa fauna.
Apparently Mondays are the worst days for bodies coming in this state. People go out picnics, having a drink on the weekend, they fall in the water, they disappear, and then Mondays the bodies come to the surface.
E os pequenos e os maiores, não é? Isso dentro dos tecidos que ainda restavam e dentro das cavidades.
So, I mean, it sounds like, we're not just talking about one or two animals. The most that Dr. Elizabeth has actually taken from a corpse or found inside is more than 100 of these fish. Principalmente, o Candiru vai comendo
A principal lesão, além dele ter o tropismo pelos orifícios.
So these fish are sort of purpose-built for the task, it appears. Cylindrical body, very smooth and slimy, and then they have this mouth that when it opens, it produces a circular bite.
These are actual photographs from the morgue that show the gunshot wound-like holes. And in some cases, the fish still inside the human corpse.
The body is literally eaten from the inside, just the bones and some skin remain, so it's really quite a horrifying thing to visualize.
Unlike the harmless catfish of the US, Amazon catfish are proving to be a diverse group of gruesome killers. And having heard this grisly story, I'm strangely drawn to this macabre fish. I'm keen to see a live one in action. But I don't think I'll be using a human corpse as bait.
The thought of maybe more than 100 of these boring into a human body, I mean, they really are flesh-eating monsters.
It's not often you use a big fish to catch a small fish, but after just 2 hours, it's definitely worked.
Oh, what was that? What was that?
I don't know the scientific name for all the scavengers at this gruesome picnic. The locals call these mussoon, or snakefish.
There's actually something a bit different in there. If I can get it out. I don't really want to shove my hand in there. There. Just hold him. There we go. So this is the Candiru asu. This is the fish that bores holes in the body and then devours from the inside out. And it was this fish that they retrieved from those corpses in the morgue. This was a heavy fish when it went in. Nothing left inside. In fact, if I'll just rip it open a little bit.
The Candiru asu makes no distinction between human flesh and that of any other animal floating in the Amazon.
Just like a hollow case of skin with the remnants of the bone inside. This is almost exactly, what the autopsy report was in the morgue, except, in that case we were talking about a human being.
This water is obviously filled with flesh eaters, so I try and entice them to feed out of my hand.
I'm actually just on somebody's house here, and I'm just dangling this fish off the side, and these kangaroo are just attacking right on the surface. And they, I can see from here the way they are just literally drilling their way into that fish.
It's like a crocodile death roll, and no doubt the cause of the gunshot-like entry holes in the corpses.
I might try and lift them out, actually. I might try and lift them. Look at that. Hey, that's one there. And back in the water. Apparently these things will give you a bite just like a piranha. Look at that. That's very, very definite cut. And this is all the work of the kangaroo.
The Amazon River is a scavenger's paradise. It's like an acid bath here for corpses. And again, it's members of the catfish family that are one of the principal operators, cleaning up the bodies. But no sooner have I cast into the water when my fishing guide Flavio spots a truly graphic example of overambitious Amazon predation.
Oh, loco!
Something that immediately reminds me of the man half swallowed by a fish.
We've just seen this payara floating down the river, quite a big one, still alive. We thought it was dead to start with. On investigation, it's got another one down its throat, and Flavio's just grabbing hold of the tail of it and pulling it out. Here we go. Look at that, here's the tail of another fish.
For me.
So this fish almost choked to death on something just, too big to swallow, really. If we can get the other fish out, it might survive, but as it is... Good grief! Size of that, look at that! Just look at... Good grief! Look at the size of the fish that other fish swallowed. So that's the meal, the one that's looking slightly worse for wear. And this is the greedy one that swallowed it, which might now recover.
This remarkable act of cannibalism is just as ambitious as the catfish that tried to swallow a man. Maybe in these murky waters, accidentally biting off more than you can chew is a common occurrence.
Oh, loco!
I'm back on my quest in earnest.
Oh, just trying a different spot here. Got a rapid at the top there, and then there's a deep hole with a clean bottom. And this is a particular place for Piraiba. I've had a few fish recently that have taken the bait and I just haven't hooked up, or they've come off. Oh! It's come off. So what I'm doing, I'm trying something a little bit clever. I'm putting a double hook rig on, so the idea is it doesn't have to take the entire bait, even if it just nips the tail of it or the body of it. I should hook up, get a good hook hold. Okay, go to the front of the boat. Listen. Something down there. Just grab the bait, bent the rod, and then let go. That is a fish on. I think it's coming towards me. What I don't want is the hook to come out like it has been doing. Feels strange. There are people who hook these fish and they're literally on for hours, and it gets dark and they give up and they cut the line.
I've come far too far to give up, so even though my muscles are aching, I carry on.
There's a very fast sort of pulsing to it. It's not a throb, 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 throb. This is a big fish. I can only bully to a certain extent. Strong, strong, strong fish, strong fish, strong fish. Ah!
After a struggle of nearly half an hour, I have the better of it.
There it is, that's the fish, there's the fish! There's the fish! Piraiba, it's a Piraiba. Ah! Here we go. This is the one I wanted. This is the Piraiba, the real monster of the Amazon. Fish is growling at me. Oh, big old mouth on there. Heavy, heavy fish. I can hardly hold this up. My arms are pretty shot anyway. No, I can feel the fish flexing. It's about to kick. Whoa. Oops. And this is the one that people say, when it gets big enough, it goes after people as well. Looks a bit like a shark and it has a reputation to match. This is a big one, but they do go bigger. They do go bigger. This one, I don't know, possibly about 80 pounds. I mean, you know, this is a man-sized fish, but they go bigger than man-size. They go a size big enough to swallow a man. And a streamlined fish, smooth skin, no scales, but it's a very streamlined catfish. Most catfish are pretty slobby. They mope around on muddy bottoms, but this is a fish of fairly fast current, and I can just feel that muscle flexing. That's a lovely, lovely result. And am I tired? Am I tired? What I've got to do, though, is remember that the fish is as tired as I am. So, although I want to admire it out of the water, I've got to get it back and think of the fish's recovery as well. Oh. Oh. Okay. 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 Ah. Ah. Oh. And he's gone. What a river monster.